Greetings and welcome to another edition of Cutler Corner. I'm Josh Cutler, proud to be state representative for the 6th Plymouth District, including the towns of Pembroke, Duxbury, and Hanson. And I have a great guest with me here today. Pleased to welcome Pembroke resident and former Duxbury resident, Dave Shea. Dave has had quite an interesting career. We're going to touch on a number of different aspects of it today. But first and foremost, Dave is the president of the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce. And we wanted to welcome him here today to talk about some small business issues. So
thanks,
welcome, Dave. Glad to have you.
Appreciate it.
Give us your background briefly before we dive into the chamber stuff. You work for New York Life as a account executive, and tell us a little bit about that.
I'm an agent, registered and representative for New York Life. I've been in the insurance and financial services industry since 1994, with a short hiatus in between. I had a client that convinced me helping him publish a hockey magazine would be good for everybody, and it was for a while.
Hockey mags?
Yeah, there weren't any in the country. Any full-color glossy magazines, and it was quite an undertaking, and it was a great product, but you know, as any small business starting out, we ran into two things we couldn't overcome: the NHL lockout that came in '04, and the inability at that point to raise our third round of financing, and as a result, we're now a trivia question.
Well, it's a good tease for future. In the second half of the show, we're going to talk about your other career in sports broadcasting with the Bruins, and quite an interesting story there. But I wanted to touch on the first part of what you talked about, small business, because you're the president of the Pembroke Chamber. I'm proud to be a member along with you, and we've been doing some really great things under your leadership. I think, did I read that in the last 3 years we've doubled or tripled the number of members in the chamber? Yeah,
when I first came on board, actually I joined the Pembroke Chamber in 1908, that fall, and I was asked to attend.
1908.
2008. I feel like I was born in 1908.
Now you have gray hair, Dave, but you know I don't want to.
But I was asked to attend a networking meeting for the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce, and I looked at the woman that invited me, and I said, "Pembroke has a Chamber of Commerce?" And that's how I really got involved. After spending a year, the then president was about to step down. I was asked to run for the position. It was kind of like everyone that wants to be president step forward, and everyone in the line but me step back.
Step back.
So I was elected president for the period beginning January 1 of 2010, and at that time we had 42 members. And last year we hit 120, and we're right around 120 again this year. So we've seen significant growth. And I think I probably, like any small business owner, when he sees something that he feels needs to change, he tries to put his own stamp on it and make certain things a priority. And I felt that the business owners in Pembroke needed to feel like somebody really cared, like somebody wanted to make sure that everybody knew they were there. And I think that's really what we've tried to build the chamber on over the last 3.5 years now, and that is awareness of what we are and what kind of advocacy we can provide for our members.
Yeah, just for folks who may not be familiar, may not run a small business, what exactly is a Chamber of Commerce, and what is its typical function?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is designed to try to support local business in any way we can, whether it's exposure, whether it's helping them market themselves, or whether it be an advocate for a particular business. We've had a couple of instances, Josh, over the last couple of years where we've had members come to us with real problems and issues that they've had, whether it be not being able to put out signage in the town because it doesn't conform to certain guidelines, or the state labeling a business something that it really isn't, and forcing that business to shut down. We've been able to step up, go to bat for these people, and get things changed and have right done. And I think that's really what the primary purpose of the chamber is, to be advocates for local business and to promote local business.
And what sort of events and what sort of events do you do throughout the year?
Well, we try to have networking events every month, and that's designed just so different business owners have a chance to go out and market to other business owners, or just to other people to make people aware of what services they provide, how they benefit the community, find out what other business owners are doing to market their business and to increase their sales. And we try to do that in a social setting, very low-key, where everyone enjoys a little drink and food and gets a chance to meet one another, and you're always meeting new people and new business owners and thereby new ideas once a month at least.
I've always been surprised in attending some of the chamber meetings how many different kinds of businesses there are, even in a small town like Pembroke. There's so many.
Yeah.
You see the stores, the retail stores you see, and you're aware of those. But there's so many other kinds of businesses that may operate, business to business type of businesses or other things that aren't as much on the radar screen. And it's always been amazing to me to see that. Do you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the market that I work, I would say 50 to 60% of my business is in the business market, working with business owners on different levels. And invariably, one of the first questions I ask when I sit down with a business owner is, how did you get into this business? And until you talk to people, you don't realize how many businesses are out there that you would never, ever think about until you sit down with that person and get to talking about it. And you say, oh yeah, I guess that's necessary to get your business from here to here to here. It's amazing how many businesses and companies are out there that you would never know exist.
What do in talking to these businesses, what are some of the concerns that you hear from some of the small businesses about just how they're going, whether it's specific to Pembroke or just South Shore, Massachusetts in general? What are some of the concerns that you hear?
Well, I think the biggest one, Josh, is the concern about health care and what it's doing to the business owner that's forced to provide for employees. I think that is a large reason as to why the increase in jobs has not taken place yet. There are a lot of companies, especially small business owners, that look at what it's going to cost them to provide the benefit and other penalties that come along with having to have health insurance, and they just make the decision, you know what, I'm better off keeping my head count low in terms of the number of employees than taking on this added expense. And it's a shame because business grows only as much as employment grows, and it's a double-edged sword. I think that's probably the biggest issue for the small business owner, the mom and pop retailers. I think the big concern is getting enough local support from the community, because they're in competition with a lot of these big box stores. And hey, I go to the big box stores just like anybody else. But I think for communities to thrive, business and the citizens of the community have to work together, have to support each other. Business has to support the townspeople and the schools and the students and the families. And the townspeople have to support their local businesses, whether it be retailer or services. They need to be supported as well. So I think that's the biggest concerns that small business has in our area.
Yeah, no, off camera we were talking about the idea of buying local. You mentioned that as an important philosophy for chamber members. What does buy local mean to you?
Well, this year we took on kind of a theme that we wanted to promote: buy local, buy Pembroke. And each of our members has a decal that they can display in their office or in their storefront. And we want to constantly remind the citizens of Pembroke, hey, we have a lot of great business people in town that really care about the town. We want you to care about them as well. Give them your business. Buy local. Keep the economy going in Pembroke. Keep the businesses growing, keep the townspeople happy, and just have a vibrant, growing town in Pembroke. And that's really what the Buy Local, Buy Pembroke theme is about.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when, if you or I go and buy a pair of socks in Pembroke, that money stays in
Absolutely.
Pembroke. That business person, that business owner, they're going to spend their money maybe at our business or another business.
Absolutely.
The money stays in our economy as opposed to zipping off to some other state or some other country.
And to try to further that thought, Michelle Burt, who is a realtor and a member of the chamber.
And a past guest on Cutler Corner here.
Sure, well, as our newest selectman.
Correct.
And I asked Michelle, do I call you selectman or do I call you select woman? She said, call me a selectman. That's what it is. I said, good enough. Michelle came to me with an idea to further take the Buy Local, Buy Pembroke theme to another level and create an event, so to speak. where we have Small Business Saturday, the first Saturday of every month. All the businesses in town would be promoting different things to the community. Come on down and check us out this week. X is on sale, or buy one, get one, or whatever the case might be. But just to continue to enhance the vision of local business in Pembroke. And we haven't rolled it out yet, but I see that coming out within the next few months.
That's great. So it would be every Saturday would
Every
be
Saturday morning.
Small Business Saturday.
First Saturday.
Encouraging folks to, the first Saturday.
Yeah, first Saturday of every month.
Folks to that's great.
Yeah.
That'd be terrific.
And again, it just gives our members more exposure to the community and just reminds the community that, hey, I'm over here, don't forget me.
Sure. No, I couldn't agree more. I've always said, it's just the local businesses that support our Little League teams and sponsor things, and to keep those folks in business, we need
Absolutely.
to support them. How do folks, just if they're watching, how do you actually get to become a member? Is there a website? Can you give us that information?
Sure. The website is pembrokechamber.org, and you can go right to the website. There's a membership application there. It's $75. I still think we're the least expensive.
That's pretty cheap. Yep.
Yeah. But you know what? In these times, cheap is good.
Yeah.
That's not to be construed that, well, gee, you don't cost a whole lot, so we're probably not getting a whole lot for our dollar. I tend to think, and I think some of the other area chambers would agree, we are one of the fastest growing and most vibrant chambers around, and we offer an awful lot. And for $75, I think it's money well spent. So just go to the website and join us. We'd be happy to have you.
And you guys do a business directory that you hand out to retail stores with all the members listed. Is that
Absolutely right? Yeah, we have a directory, and we have a membership application in the directory. So you may want to contact the chamber, which you can do through the website, and say, "Hey, I'd love to have a directory. Can you mail me one?"
Great. And these monthly events that you have, those are open to all chamber members? And
yeah, the networking events are open to everybody. And in fact, Josh, I believe in geographical bonding. Over the last 3.5 years, when we have a networking event, we'll invite the Norwell Chamber, the Hanover Chamber.
I was going to ask about that.
The Marshfield Chambers. The more the merrier. It's a great opportunity for others to get involved, sure. See what we're doing, maybe take some of our ideas and employ it in their own chamber. And there's usually a networking event every month. There is the legislative breakfast, which you have participated in.
I enjoyed that.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's usually every March. We have a luncheon in June, which we just had recently with Police Chief Wall and Fire Chief Neenan speaking, and we'll have another breakfast probably in October. We'll also have our general membership meeting, which we try to encourage all the members to come get together and hear what we have to say, what our agenda is, what we're trying to accomplish, and find out what their needs are. Maybe we're not aware of something that is really pressing with a good number, and the best way to find out about it is to get people together, as you know, and listen to what the concerns are.
Super. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about another aspect of your life that I find very interesting, your background as a Bruins play-by-play announcer. So we'll be right back. This is Cutler Corner. You're watching with Representative Josh Cutler.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know, wherever you are.
And welcome back. You're watching Cutler Corner. I'm Representative Josh Cutler, proud to represent the 6th Plymouth District, towns of Pembroke, Duxbury, and Hanson. And again, my guest with me today is Dave Shea. We're just talking a little bit about your experiences as president of the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to segue in a second. But I wanted to mention an event that you've got coming up, the annual charity softball game. Tell us about that.
4th annual, which you were...
And can I just interrupt? And please do not tell the viewers about all those errors that I made a number of years ago. I'm quite
You were
embarrassed.
reading my mind. As I mentioned to Josh a while ago, he played in the very first Chamber versus Police and Fire game. He was our shortstop. to start. We couldn't afford to keep him there. I'm afraid that might have cost you the election that year, but
I'm a better legislator than shortstop.
there you go.
Let's
You
just say
learned from that.
How about that?
You
Okay.
learned from that experience. But a few years ago, we wanted to try to come up with a community event where we could give back to the community and support some charitable endeavor. And the police and fire guys, they're always at the ready to help the community. So they said, sure, bring it on. They just walloped us in that first meeting. But we learned from that. If you can't beat them, cheat. And we went out and we stockpiled some young talent the second year.
Yeah, your son was one of our ringers, wasn't he?
Yeah, there were a few of the high school baseball players.
Because they were business members, right?
Absolutely. Well, they wanted to learn about business.
Yeah,
that was close enough.
Yeah, members, yeah.
And we won. And last year, because our membership grew so much, we actually didn't have to cheat. We went out and we had some natural born talent within the chamber, and we won rather handily. So I've served notice to Chief Wall and Chief Neenan that we're more than ready to go this year, and I expect them to bring their best. It'll be on Tuesday, the 13th of August at 6:30 at McPhillips Field down on Mattakesett Street in Pembroke, under the lights. And it'll be a great time. This year, the monies raised will go to the Chamber Scholarship Fund. I'm thrilled we were able to get that back into play.
That's for high school
For high school seniors, yep. We gave two $500 scholarships, one boy, one girl, and I was so happy to see that back in play after being absent for a number of years. And this year, all the monies raised at the softball game will go toward that.
Super. Well, it's appropriate we're talking about sports because it will segue again into to another sport, hockey. And you have had quite an interesting career as a play-by-play color commentator for the Boston Bruins, starting a number of years back. Can you kind of walk us through what your history was?
Well, growing up in Duxbury, I was the proverbial three-sport star in a small town. Always thought I'd play sports, and once I got off to college, I was good but not good enough, and quickly transitioned into thinking that maybe I would teach and coach. But ultimately, I went the way of broadcasting. And once I got into the broadcasting business, I was in radio.
How did you get your first start, like first foot in the door?
I went to Northeast Broadcasting School just to get an understanding of the business and how it operated, and got a job lead in Amsterdam, New York, which, if you haven't been there, you have no idea where it is. It's 30 miles west of Albany.
Okay.
It's along the New York Thruway, and it's as if towns were dropped out of a plane from 30,000 feet and just landed every couple of miles. Amsterdam, small town, about 90% Polish, and there was a small radio station there, and the owner, Phil Spencer, was a former Brooklyn Dodger scout. And while we were looking for jobs, most of the kids in the class were looking, I want to be in New York, I want to be in Chicago, I want to be in all big cities. You just don't start that way. And I'm looking, and I see sportscaster. And I thought, beautiful.
And how old were you roughly?
I was 23.
Okay.
And sportscaster probably should have been in fine print, because what they needed was a disc jockey 6 days a week, which I just hated, but had to do it. But I cut my teeth there, learned my trade, and one of my teachers in school was also the news director and director of public affairs at WRKO back then, Roger Allen, great dear friend. And he said, hey, there's an opening in Boston, I think you ought to come back. And I said, gee, Roger, I'm not ready yet. He said, sure, yeah, I've already set up the meeting with the general manager for you. Long story short, got the job, came back to Boston about 10 months later, and started with WEEI. And from there, I always knew I wanted to do play-by-play, but I knew I had to go somewhere else to get that experience. I went down to Atlanta for 3 years. While I was there, in March of 1980, Fred Cusick calls me. Now, Fred knew I had covered the Bruins while I was in Boston, and he said, look, I'm losing my voice. Johnny Pearson is back in Montreal handling some funeral arrangements. I need you to call the game, and I'll do the color. I said, gee, Fred, I've never called a hockey game. Of all the sports,
what were you doing before that in Atlanta and New York?
I was doing Georgia Tech football. I was doing Georgia Tech basketball. I did the Falcons pregame and postgame.
Okay.
I had done all other sports. Had never done hockey. Never played it.
A hockey fan?
Oh yeah, Duxbury didn't have a hockey program until my senior year, and it was too late then to shift gears. And finally, Fred talked to me, and I figured, hey, Saturday night in March, Bruins in Atlanta, who's going to be watching? I said, sure, I'll do it. A couple hours later, I found out that Harry Sinden fired Fred Creighton as the coach, and Harry was going to coach, and that meant all eyes would be on the game.
Oh my gosh.
And about 7 minutes into the game, a hole opened up in the ice in front of one of the benches. I had to fill for an hour interviewing anybody that could breathe that would walk by. So it was baptism under fire.
You couldn't have had a worse first.
But it went so well, Josh. I mean, it went unbelievably well to the point where I had people calling and writing and, hey, you ought to do this for a living. I was back in Boston about 8 months later, less than that, and doing BC football on WEEI. And 38, Channel 38 would always call me to fill in for Johnny, who was away on furniture conventions back then in the spring and in the fall. And that's how my hockey career started, which is so ironic because I only skated on Toby Garden Pond in the winters. I never played competitively, but it's the kind of sport where if you really get into it and learn it and become a student of it, it's a great game to call, and that's where I happen to make my mark.
So you came back to Boston, and for what, Nesson and Channel 38?
Yeah, 38 first, and then Nesson when they started.
Yeah, when did Nesson come along?
84.
Okay.
And I remember Mike Andrews, and I can't remember the play-by-play guy. They were doing the Red Sox on Nesson, and nobody but the people in the studio could hear it because it wasn't out over the air yet. But by that fall, Sean McDonough and I were doing Hockey East, and then the Bruins, and it turned out to be a tremendous network.
And how long were you doing play-by-play? Were you doing color or play-by-play?
Well, in the early going, I was doing the color.
Okay. For folks, what is the difference?
Well, play-by-play is you're actually calling the action as it happens. You're telling everybody what the play is as it happens. Color is you're analyzing what just happened and providing some anecdotal
Which is harder.
information. Well, for somebody that never played hockey, I found being an analyst was more difficult because I couldn't relate to things saying, yeah, I remember being in that situation. Right. It just didn't come second nature. Play-by-play has always been what I've been most comfortable with.
No, but you have to think quicker, I would think, on play-by-play. You know, it's much easier to get tripped up.
It's a lot of it's memorization and preparation. And hockey, to me, people say, well, that is so difficult. I thought it was a lot easier because all you had to do was be able to identify people quickly. Baseball, the pitch comes, pitch is over, and now nowadays you could have a minute between the next pitch.
Well, that's when you need a really good color guy, right?
Well, either that or you provide your own color. On radio, a lot of times you're providing your own color. It just depends what sport, but I found play-by-play to be a lot easier.
And you were doing radio and TV?
Yeah, some say I should have stuck to radio because I have a face for radio, but I was doing TV for hockey all the time. I don't think I ever did a radio game.
Okay.
Might have done a couple of bean pots on radio back in the 80s.
Gotcha. And so you must have met, all kinds of folks, Bruins players and coaches and stuff. I mean, who are some of the people that stand out over your time as some of your favorites? Well,
Phil Esposito was a character. Andy Brickley and I were partners for years, but there was one year where Phil and Jerry Cheevers shared the color role with me, and Phil he's his own guy, marches to a different drummer. He would keep me in stitches. I interviewed Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was first starting his Pumping Iron tour. That's when I was on radio at that time, and I mean he came into the studio, sat down. Of course, he's jacked with the guns, and he looked at me. He says, "Oh, you're big." I said, "I'm big?" I was walking on air the rest of the day. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Universe, says, "I'm big." I interviewed guys like James Woods, the actor, Michael J. Fox, Matthew Perry. When the Hollywood stars would come in to play the Bruins alumni, I'd always end up interviewing a ton of them. Dennis Leary, Lenny Clark. I mean, it opened doors to meeting people that normally I never would have met. That was one of the cherries on top of the sundae.
Do you have a favorite player from all your years in doing play-by-play commentary?
Boy, that's
Or
That's
least
hard.
favorite player, if you want to name.
No, we'll keep those anonymous. But I would have to say, Ray Bork and Cam Neely, those two. Ray was such a gentleman and such a great player, a great person. Cam, when he first came to Boston, was I don't want to say naive, but he was like, I'm in the big city type of approach. Yeah. He was really a country boy at heart, even though he grew up just outside of Vancouver. And he handled the fame and success so gracefully as his career went on. And now, of course, he's in the presidency of the Bruins, and I think the team is beginning to get a little bit of the stamp from his play.
Now, did you travel with the team?
I did.
So you probably were pretty close quarters with them? Or
oh, yeah. I mean,
get to build relationships? And
oh, yeah. They're a great bunch. I found hockey players more so than any other athlete.
Less spoiled than other athletes, is that fair to say?
That could be. I mean, they grew up on farms, a good many of them in Canada and other parts of the world. I mean, nowadays, there's so much money that goes into youth sports that the innocence of all of them have been tainted just a bit. But, back then, they were very unassuming, and they were just thrilled to be in the National Hockey League. Hockey is basically what they knew, and they were just real down-to-earth kind of guys. And, we'd charter to all the towns. You'd land, and there'd be a bus waiting for you. The bus would take you to the hotel. Travel was pretty good then and still is now, but the guys, you were around them all the time, and they're just real people.
Now, do you still follow the Bruins on a regular basis? I mean,
oh,
you
yeah.
watch all the games, and this season was...
Yeah, I don't watch every game like I used to, just because you needed to be on top of everything that was going on. But I watch as much as I can, and then, of course, once the playoffs begin, it's the greatest time of the year in any sport.
It was a great... Well, this season especially.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't end the way we wanted, but it was a great run.
Yeah, they've got a good, tight team, and I like their coach, Claude Julien.
What did you think of that big trade?
Well, I'm not quite as upset about it as many of the young girls in the area are. I mean, Tyler's a good kid, and he'll probably be a great player. But I think they felt he wasn't quite ready to be worth the $5 million a year that he's going to start drawing this year. And they got a heck of a player in Louis Eriksson, and the three young kids they got. Who knows? That deal could work out very well. Good. Tyler Seguin could go on and make the Hall of Fame, and then you'll say, well, not such a good deal. But I think it was a good deal.
Well, we were out of time, believe it or not. I want to thank you for being my guest. And actually, usually I do my closing myself. I say, hi, this is Cutler Corner. Maybe I could have you as a broadcaster do my closing for me. Would you be willing to do that?
I'd be happy to.
All I have to say is, on behalf of Representative Josh Cutler, you've been watching Cutler Corner.
Well, see, you just closed the show.
I want a professional to do it.
Well, I'm Dave Shea. I've been grateful to be part of this show. And, of course, you tune in every month to see Josh Cutler, State Representative for the 6th District of Plymouth, representing Pembroke, Duxbury, and Hanson.